Hello, thank you for tuning in for my talk on how people understand systems. My name is Jane Hofswell, and I'm a sixth year PhD candidate in the Allen School here at the UW. I work with Professor Jeffrey Hare on visualization and program understanding as part of the Interactive Data Lab. Looking back, I first got into research as an undergraduate at Harvey Mudd College. I was working on an interesting research project about abstract interpretation. Basically, we were trying to analyze the space of possible behaviors and outputs for different programs. In order to understand what the abstract interpreter was doing, I found that the easiest way to look at it was to take a box of colored pencils and draw out the behavior of the code. To do this, I had the abstract interpreter provide the intermediate representation for our program, and use that to build a graph of the behavior like the one shown here. These graphs seemed to really help for me to understand what was going on, but were pretty tedious to make. I started reading about visualization approaches online and ultimately ended up creating a program to automatically draw the graph structure. And that is when I discovered and really got into visualization research. My work as an undergrad was only a small taste of research, but it was enough to get me excited to do more. I wanted to work on projects that would help people understand and write code, so I applied to grad school, came here to the UW, and did just that. I'm now going to briefly talk through 5 research projects I have done as a graduate student at the UW. With my advisor Jeff, I worked on 2 projects that visualize program behavior to help people understand and write their code. For this work, I targeted a visualization language called Vega. Vega is a programming language for creating interactive visualizations. For example, the programmer can write code to generate a scatter plot with an interactive gray brush that highlights the selected points. However, sometimes the interactive behavior goes wrong. In this case, the programmer has to debug why the brush does not always highlight the points. In the first project, I used a timeline visualization to show the interactive behavior of the program. As you interact with the output visualization, the timeline shows what input events are being updated. In this case, only the third brushing interaction correctly highlights the points. This change in behavior corresponds to the scatterplot signal being updated at the start of the third brush. From this work, I found that the visual debugging techniques can help users see the internals of the step-by-step process, but that it can be difficult to connect insights back to the code. In the second project, I used similar visualizations of the program behavior, but placed them inline in the code to directly show the behavior as the programmer types. When interacting with the program output, these visualizations also update, thus allowing the user to see how variables change in real time. From this work, I found that automatically surfacing contextually relevant information directly within the code can help programmers better understand the runtime behavior. While the 2 projects I previously mentioned were strongly motivated by my undergraduate work, one thing I've learned in grad school is that research can evolve. You may start with one idea, but this work can adapt to take you in a variety of exciting new directions. For one project, I created a new programming language called Setcola. As in my undergraduate work, graphs can be really helpful for understanding data, but they are also sometimes difficult to create. The goal of Setcola is to help domain experts without programming knowledge to create custom graph layouts like the one shown here. For example, ecologists may use a graph to understand the producer-consumer relationships in an ecosystem. Using the graph, ecologists can easily identify important relationships, like the fact that the lion is the only carnivore to feed on other carnivores, or the elephant has no predators in this ecosystem. While this small graph layout could be produced by hand, it only shows a subset of a larger ecosystem. For example, the Serengeti National Park food web has about 10 times the number of nodes, while exhibiting a similar layout structure. With Setcola, ecologists can easily create a custom layout like this one by defining the node positions relative to graph properties using constraints. Basically, Setcola is a set-based constraint layout. In Setcola, you start by defining sets of nodes based on their domain-specific properties, and then apply constraints to the set elements. There are 2 major takeaways from this approach. Setcola reduces the number of user-authored constraints by 1 to 2 orders of magnitude, and decouples the layout from the individual nodes to support reuse of the layout across similar graphs. One assumption in Setcola is that the input graph will include clean data that is ready to use out of the box. But data often comes in a variety of forms that require pre-processing before it can be used. As an intern with Adobe here in Seattle, I did a different project looking at the extraction and analysis of tabular data from PDF documents. In this work, I employed state-of-the-art techniques to detect, extract, classify, analyze, parse, and reuse data extracted from PDF documents. However, we quickly learned that this pipeline surfaces a number of errors that impact the usability of the results. In particular, only 1% of tables were extracted correctly from the corpus analyzed in this work. How many errors can you find between the original PDF and the extracted data table? Consider pausing for a moment to take a look. I would say that there are 7 errors, including the erroneous inclusion of the title and cells that have been improperly merged or split. Based on this result, we devised a set of interaction techniques for mobile devices to allow users to repair the table structure on the go. These interactions include both a gestural and a toolbar-based approach to modifying the table structure. The full video demo is available at the link shown here. In this work, we contribute a taxonomy of common extraction errors for tables in PDF documents and interaction techniques for repairing errors on the go. My most recent project looks at responsive visualization design. This is a sneak peek of some new work for CHI 2020, so you are one of the first people to actually see it presented. I'm also really excited to share that this paper received a CHI Best Paper Award. A quick question for you. Think about the last news article you read. What device did you use? Did you say your phone? Because in general, mobile devices are now more common than computers for reading news articles. I started by surveying 231 visualizations found in news articles from 12 sources, including the New York Times and 538. While the text content of news articles can easily adapt to the device size, it is non-trivial to create responsive visualizations. For each article, I examined how the visualizations adapt between a desktop and mobile screen. Take a look at this visualization from the New York Times article, The Places in the US Where Disaster Strikes Again and Again. How many differences can you see? Maybe pause the video for a minute and see what you can find. This article is also available at the link shown here. To answer my own question, I would say there are 10 types of changes. The visualization has been resized for the smaller width of the phone. The title and subtitle have been repositioned to the top of the visualization. The text showing the disaster cost for the labeled bars has been removed. The labels have been shortened to remove the redundant word hurricane. The labels have also been repositioned into the chart area rather than the white space. A small tick has been added to connect the label to the corresponding bar. The grid lines for the y-axis have been extended to fill the whole width on the phone, and the labels for the grid lines have also been shifted. There are also fewer grid lines or tick marks on the y-axis. And finally, the labels for the x-axis have been shortened. As you can see, there are a lot of changes for this visualization, but making such careful updates to the design can be difficult and time-consuming. To understand the process of creating responsive visualizations like this one, I interviewed 5 journalists with previous publications involving responsive visualizations. From these interviews, I noticed that the authors generally utilize a desktop-first development approach. As one participant stated, by virtue of sort of sketching graphics on my laptop or on my desktop screen, often the first iteration of something works best at those screen widths. Since the default working environment is a desktop, the designs often reflect that default rather than the more common expectation that visualizations will be viewed on mobile. The journalists also tended to design for specific artboard sizes. In other words, they create separate desktop and mobile versions rather than programmatically changing the design to adapt to any size. One journalist explained that it's annoying when you have to make changes to 3 or 4 or 5 different artboards, and that usually introduces mistakes. So that's one of the reasons why the design for mobile comes later. To address these concerns, I developed a new visualization system that promotes responsive visualization design. In this system, the user can simultaneously view the visualization canvas for each chart size. By default, changes to the design apply to all visualizations simultaneously. The user can then apply customizations to particular chart sizes. For the complete demo of this system, please take a look at my website here. This visualization system can support flexible workflows for responsive visualization design via simultaneous editing and lightweight customizations, rather than requiring journalists to utilize the linear development approach described in the interviews. Overall, my work aims to understand and improve how people interact with systems and data. Thank you for listening. For more information on the different projects mentioned in this talk, please take a look at my website or feel free to send me an email. Goodbye.